All right, ladies and gentlemen, my friends. Firstly, a happy new year to you all. I hope you had a wonderful new year last night. And we're going to get into some interesting news today. Very interesting. It's only day one of 2025, and already we have got chaos. We've got Slovakia, Ukraine, Russia, the Taliban, Pakistan, America, and China. I mean, we got seven things that have all happened in the space of the last 24, 48 hours. Oh man, it is just chaos. Let's get over to the shared screen. Happy New Year, everybody. Firstly, as well, thank you so much for all the new subscribers. It's just going from strength to strength. We're going for 450,000 subscribers. That's the target. So get subscribed. Here we go then. Let's begin with this. So this came out a few days ago. Slovakia threatened Ukraine with power cuts if Russian gas flows stop. So you remember this, they talked about this, the Prime Minister, Robert Fico, he made all these warnings to Ukraine. He said he's going to cut off their power and electricity. So that's how it started, right? That's how it all began. Well, this is just what you can see here. You can see what's just been announced. Russian gas stops flowing to Europe via Ukraine. So the gas deliveries to Europe went through this pipeline, and the pipeline went through Ukraine. So it's actually stopped now. Ukraine and Zelensky said that they weren't going to sign this 5 year, renew this 5 year deal with Gazprom. I mean, it's absolute chaos at the moment. A lot of the European countries are sort of scrambling here. Although, bear in mind, they did reduce their reliance on Russian gas as far back as 2021 here. But this is what the article says then out of DW. The remaining Russian gas deliveries using its oldest transit pipeline from Ukraine to Europe stopped entirely on Wednesday. So today, basically, as the 2019 contracts expired, the national energy giant Gazprom has announced. Due to the repeated and clearly expressed refusal of the Ukrainian side to renew the agreements, Gazprom was deprived of the technical and legal ability to supply gas for transit through the territory of Ukraine from today, the 1st of January 2025. It said that the flow stopped at 8 a.m. Moscow time, mirroring comments from Ukraine. So it is official now. Let me catch you up to speed on what this means. Then we'll go into some Russian aspects, Taliban, and everything else that's been going on. So why are deliveries stopping them? The government in Kyiv said it would not extend or renew the contracts while Russia's invasion continued, at least not until there was, not unless there was some provision for delayed or frozen payment to Gazprom could be arranged, which the critics said was not which was said it was not feasible. We stopped the transit of Russian gas. This is a historic event. Russia is losing its markets. It will suffer the financial losses. Europe has already made the decision to abandon Russian gas. This is from the Ukrainian energy minister in a statement. So Ukraine stopped buying Russian gas as early as 2015. Now, if you remember, this was the annexation of Crimea, but they, even though that happened, they agreed to continue the transit of the gas through the country. Why? Because they were getting about 800 million US a year. Some say it was as high as a billion, but it's somewhere between that amount. So which countries are affected, which are not? Well, a lot already transited away from Russian energy. So we've got a lot of EU and member states, like you've got Slovakia. Robert Fico actually clashed with Zelensky, and he went to see Putin. So remember, came out last week. It was a sort of surprise visit. Everyone was talking about what was this about? Was it about a peace deal? No, it was really more about the energy, I would say. So, despite Fico's vocal criticism, his government also says it's plenty of gas stockpiles and that it does not anticipate short-term problems. The Slovakian transit company Ustream said on Wednesday that supply via Ukraine from Russia had halted. So this is going to be interesting. If you've read any of the reports on Slovakia getting a lot of their energy, this is not going to go down well. But you've also got Hungary, you've got Serbia as well. They receive the majority of their gas from Russia. Now, this is via a different pipeline, the Turk Stream. I've pulled this up for you so you can actually see. There's different pipelines. Remember, we had Nord Stream 1 and 2. This is where there was the unknown, mysterious explosion that no one even wanted to investigate, even though it was investigated and they found out exactly who did it and they issued an arrest warrant for it. But if you talk about that on YouTube, you get censored. But if you want to look into that and who the arrest warrant was for, I'll just circle around here. The specialist divers came from a certain country. That's actually what took place, according to the investigations from 2 European countries. Very interesting. So this is what you really had, these 2 pipelines then crossing through Ukraine. We've also got a couple more that come south, and we've got one that transits through a little bit more northern states here, so going through Poland. But you can see how interconnected all of Europe is from the gas. So what else then? EU energy imports from Russia, much reduced, still meaningful. Ukraine is now going to lose $800 million. Again, we think it's between 800 million and 1 billion. And these are the transit fees from Russia, or more specifically from Gazprom. But they're looking to lose about 5 billion US just in annual gas sales. And they're actually losing a lot of money. Gazprom are losing money for the first time in, 25 years, I believe. So the EU has sanctioned several forms of Russian energy deliveries and imports, but they've not stopped them entirely, even though they said that. I don't know if you recall, but the EU said, we've completely stopped Russian gas. These sanctions, that's it. We've gotten rid of it, or we've stopped it, or it just wasn't true. They reduced the flow, and a lot of European countries now have transited away from Russian energy. You got a lot of Norwegian gas and other places. You've even got LNG and things like that from the US. There's been a lot of changes with the energy, but the EU obviously doesn't want people to know that they still use Russian energy. So it's the most bizarre thing if you think about it. So they're saying we need to get rid of all the Russian energy, we need to stop supporting the war machine, and yet they're sending billions and billions and billions to Russia for their energy. So it's like quite the conflict there. Still, Russian deliveries to Europe are massively reduced from their 2018 peak, when Gazprom exported 200 billion cubic meters of gas to the continent. You've also got the Yamal Europe pipeline via Belarus, which I just showed you. That's also shut, and the Nord Stream as well was blown up in 2022. Yes, we know all about that. In 2023, Russia shipped around 15 billion cubic meters of gas through Ukraine to Europe. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So Ukraine actually allowed Russia to transport 15 billion cubic meters of gas through their own country to Europe. You can't make this stuff up. This is absolutely true. Down from closer to 65 million cubic meters when the last 5-year contract began in 2020. Some past users of the pipeline, Poland, etc., halted their purchases faster than others. In 2023, 14.8% of the EU's total gas supply still hailed from Russia. Look, 15%, although this is down very heavily since 2021, when it was about 47%. Okay. Countries like Austria and Slovakia still import a massive amount of Russian gas. This is approximately $5 billion in revenue for Moscow. So this is part then of that $5 billion that we talked about for Gazprom. Vienna says no supply disruptions are forecast. So this is Austria, as they had diversified sources, importing LNG via Italy and Germany. They've got a reserve. But remember, reserves only last so long. Slovakia has also been preparing and reported no deficit, but they're looking at an extra 177 euros in transit fees in alternative routes, as gas will now be imported from the West, probably a lot of US, I would assume, rather than the East. Other European countries not members of the EU are also expected to suffer. Moldova, we'll talk about this in another video because this is really kicking off. Once part of the Union, Soviet Union, is projected to sustain serious losses. They're already talking about all sorts of emergency measures on the grid. I just saw this article come out as well. It actually came out on the 30th, but this was very interesting. So remember how we talked about how there's going to be a lot more of these articles that come out, and it's going to be very heavily talking about warfare and how we need to think about warfare in different ways, and we need to prepare, and the countries, Article 5 and everything else. Well, these articles keep coming out all the time. So this was one, I'll just go through it here, out of Sky News. And this was all around these hybrid attacks. So this man's saying that Russia's already triggered Article 5 via hybrid attacks like hacking and things like this. And he's pushing for NATO to look at this. And did it trigger Article 5? If so, we should go to war. There's like these people, these warmongers constantly, and why Sky News promotes it, I'm not sure. But here it is. Russia's unconventional attacks against NATO look like war, and allies must set new red lines that will trigger a retaliation if crossed. And funny enough, it's always a former foreign minister. They wait until the last minute, or they do it just as they leave the post. They never do it when they're in post, funny enough. But he does not believe the alliance was responding with sufficient speed and urgency to the threat. So Moscow is now accused of a campaign of hybrid attacks, is what they're saying. He said a failure by NATO to act would lead to a worsening of the danger. Yes. And he says, look, here it is in red highlighted here. This could prompt allies to invoke an Article 5 response, where an attack on one is seen as an attack on all. From his perspective, then, it looks like war. And look at this here. What did he say? When did he say it? A couple of days before he left his post as foreign minister. It's like throwing a grenade in the room and walking away. Asked whether Russian grey zone attacks could reach a level that prompted the alliance to invoke Article 5, he says, yes, I would think so. It is possible. Yes. We have a general NATO strategy that would be able to draw red lines, and he suggested a retaliation. Of course he did. But this one got me. Elizabeth Braw, a leading expert on hybrid warfare, said the entire way of life for liberal democracies was at risk if allies failed to respond effectively. The danger is that we see a death by 1,000 cuts in our societies. This is what made me laugh about this. The danger is if we see, I don't know what world she's living in, but the very, hold on, here we go. And that we're in really big trouble. I'm not sure what world she's living in saying that, but I think we've already had the death by 1,000 cuts. We've already got all of these breakdown of society throughout Europe. I was very interestingly speaking to a couple just yesterday over breakfast, and it was quite fascinating. They're from Norway. And they were talking about how they haven't got a lot of the very heavy illegal migration into their country yet. And they're saying, in Stockholm, Sweden, they have friends from there, and their friends have left Stockholm and they've gone more rurally, and that they're thinking of doing that in where they live in Norway and all this. It's quite fascinating because I was sharing some of the things that I've experienced and the the documentaries sort of I filmed walking around London or Paris, and they were like, no, I've never heard any of this stuff. And I said, yeah, let me show you. I pull up my channel and I show them, some of this stuff that I'd filmed, and they were in complete disbelief. So actually, there's still a lot of people out there that don't realize what's actually going on throughout Europe. It's not just warfare, but it's mass illegal migration coming into the countries, onto the continent as well. So we're seeing this massive. We're seeing the risk of greater war breaking out via warmongers promoting this, but we're also seeing sort of more. How can we put this? More societal conflict with different groups now that are having these conflicts, and whereas before, if you think when I was growing up, people would people would, I mean, my best friend growing up was from, I think he's from Jamaica, definitely Caribbean. And you remember how different people would integrate, but we're not really seeing that same integration now. We always see it, of course, but we're seeing a lot of these splinters, a lot of groups just not integrating, and we're seeing a lot of conflict there. But I guess people aren't aware that a lot of these things are actually taking place. So we've got different challenges for this year 2025, where I think we're going to see a lot more conflict yet. So yeah, this lady thinks that we're going to see death by 1,000 cuts in our societies. No, it's already here. It's already here. But another big story then, Afghan's Taliban attacks on Pakistan raise fears of an all-out war. This picture, I thought, who exactly is this? What are they flying in? Taliban security personnel. That's not what we used to call them, funny enough. And where did they get all this equipment? The Americans, you guys know where they got all of this equipment. Some amazing equipment they've just used to attack Pakistan. Humvees and very advanced weapons, aircraft. It's pretty crazy story. Where on earth did they get all the equipment? You know, it was left behind in a speedy exit. The Taliban have also said they're closing all NGOs employing Afghan women. This is another big story that's just announced. They're gonna they launched a new crackdown, is what they're saying, on NGOs employing women. They said that the NGOs are going to be losing their license to operate in Afghanistan if they don't comply with this order. So there's a lot going on, ladies and gents. We'll probably pick up on this another day, because the Taliban and Pakistan is a big one. But we've also got Xi in his announcement last night saying no one can stop China's reunification with Taiwan. So this was the annual address, the New Year address. So he said that very clearly. They said they are one and the same family. So what do you think that means? Oh, let's see. Here we go. Oh, look at that. Can you believe it just dropped by one? I thought this was going to be up by now. What do you think that means? Because I think it's going to be very, very interesting this year as to what China and what actually happens with Xi and Trump coming in. I'd love to know your thoughts on that, and also the other stories covered today. But yeah, the the Taliban, Pakistan, I'm going to be watching that very closely, because it looks as though we could see something actually breaking out there, some sort of more conflict in the region. All right, well, thank you so much for being online and being a subscriber here. Really appreciate you. Take care. God bless. I'll see you on the next video, and happy new year. Let's make it a great one.